Hi, my name is Jim Apodaca, and I'm an OKR coach and Agile Transformation Specialist. I'm also the president and founder of Apodaca Consulting, where we specialize in OKRs, Agile Transformation, and Change Management. And I've been fortunate to partner with Synergy to bring you this webinar series on OKRs. For today's series, we'll be focusing on the scoring methods for OKRs. So let's get started. Our learning objectives today include the OKR types, baseline, metric, and aspirational, and we'll revisit those definitions and how they correlate with the scoring methods. We'll also take a look at the different types of scoring methods, including the radical focus method, the measure what matters method, as well as the stretch, target, and commit. And last but not least, we'll also take a look at OKRs and how scoring integrates with the end of cycle grading. So before we jump into the scoring methods, we want to revisit a few definitions. And in particular, we want to revisit the definition of a metric key result, a baseline key result, as well as a milestone key result. Okay, so with metric key results, these are our key results that are aspirational in nature, right? These are the moonshots that we're taking. These are those key results that put us out of our comfort zone, right? And so an example of that would be to improve customer NPS by 10% from 4.1 to 4.5. And what I like about this here is that, first of all, it calls out our goal. Our goal is 10%, right? But it also helps us understand where we sit currently, so at 4.1, and where we want to be at 4.5, okay? So metric key results, aspirational in nature. In terms of baseline key results, typically these are those key results that organizations need when there isn't a metric that currently exists. We see this quite a bit with startups, right? And MVP. Anytime we're doing something new that we haven't done before. And in this case here, we have an example of establish a baseline customer NPS score of 4.2. You say, how can we hit a 4.2 when we don't know what our baseline is, right? That's a great question. And the reason we do that is because we still want to put some sort of target out there, right? We know kind of what industry NPS scores are within our industry, right? So we kind of have a rough idea. But by the same token, we can also derive somewhat of a score that we anticipate just based on customer feedback that we've had to that point, right? Or whatever type of feedback you're grading through that NPS, right? So we still want to establish that baseline, but we want to put a kind of a target out there as well, okay? And then we have milestone key results, right? So these are intended to be 100% achievable. And the thing with milestone key results is that when we don't hit them, it creates a greater concern, right? So essentially, we've said that we are going to hit these targets. They should be 100% achievable, and when we don't, that's when we definitely want to reflect and understand why we missed that target, right? What could we have done differently, and what caused us to miss that? An example of that would be to launch our customer NPS program, okay? And here I have by end of Q2 with the asterisk. And the reason I do that is because oftentimes we see, as coaches, we will see organizations that will indicate that as part of their key result, right? They'll put a date to it as part of that key result. So by end of Q2. Well, if this is a tactical OKR, meaning that it's a quarterly OKR, the assumption is that whatever our key result is, and in this case, launch our customer NPS program, the assumption is that it will be done at the end of that at the end of that particular quarter, right? At the end of that particular cycle. So you're welcome to include it, but it's, we see it, but it's implied at that point, okay? Okay, so let's take a look at the first scoring method here. So here we have the radical focus method. It's a well-known method that if you're familiar with Christina Wadke, then you're familiar with the radical focus method. So a couple of takeaways from it, though, is that really it's intended for simplicity and clarity, right? Because it's binary in the sense that you either meet your objective or you don't, right? So you either fully meet your objective or you don't. And how does it work? Well, let's take a look. So with radical focus, you start off your key result by setting that confidence level at 50%, meaning that you've thought through what you think is attainable, and you feel pretty comfortable that we can hit this. We have a 50% confidence that we'll hit that goal, right? And so the ideal use case for it is when your organizations want to avoid a complex scoring system, right? And what we mean by that is if you're new to OKRs, you want to keep that scoring method simple, right? There's so much going on with your OKR program, and the last thing that we want is to have a complex scoring method, right? So it's ideal for those types of organizations that are new to OKRs, right? So the limitation to it, though, is that it may be ambiguous mid-cycle. And so what we mean by that is the example here is that, well, let's say we're 100% sure that we're only going to hit 80% of our goal, right? And do we score that as a 0 and 10, meaning because our scoring method is binary, we either meet it or we don't? So do we give ourselves a 0 out of 10, or do we give ourselves an 8 out of 10, right? Meaning that we feel confident that we'll hit about 80% of our goal, right? And so that's really the conversation that you want to have as an organization when this type of discussion comes up, right? And with scoring methods, it's really important that the organization is aligned in the definition. So just a little bit of definition there on radical focus. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples in terms of how you would apply the radical focus method. And in this case here, our objective is to be the product of choice for small business financing. And here what we've done is we've said our key result is going to be convert 10% of first-time users to subscription. And this 5 of 10 here, basically that's something that you call out at the end of the key result, meaning 50% out of 10, right? And so that's what you're looking at there. But let's look at how it's applied when we go through the final scoring cycle, right? And so we've gotten to the end of our OKR cycle, and now we want to reflect on this OKR, and let's take a look at what we learned from that OKR, but also let's take a look at the keep, modify, and remove piece of that. What are we going to do with this OKR now at the end of our cycle? Are we going to keep it? We're going to modify it? We're going to remove it from this, from our upcoming cycle entirely? What are we going to do? Well, let's take a look here. And in this case, the team decided that they were going to modify the OKR, right? Okay, so what does that mean? Well, let's read through this. User subscriptions are core to our product, and we've made significant progress towards our goal of 10%. To date, we have increased our first-time users to subscription from 5% to 8%. And although we missed our key result, we have a number of initiatives that are close to being complete. Upon completion, we should be at approximately 13%, and so we would like to modify this key result to reflect a stretch of 15% for first-time users converted to subscription, right? So it explains, why we gave ourselves a 0 score, meaning that, we didn't hit it. Again, going back to that binary scoring method, you either hit it or you don't. And so in this case, we gave ourselves a 0. But that doesn't tell the whole picture, right? When you read this, why the team graded the way they did and what they want to do going forward, right? This paints a much different picture than scoring it at a 0, okay? So just an example there of the radical focus method and the end of cycle grading and how you would apply that using radical focus. Okay, so the measure what matters method. This is one of the more common methods that is out there. It was introduced by John Doerr to Google back in 1999, and so it's the scoring method that that they've used. It's classified as either committed OKRs or aspirational OKRs. Okay, and so in terms of grading for the aspirational OKRs, the grading cycle that they use here is a 0.3, meaning that we had some sort of progress, right? That we didn't hit our goal, but we did make some progress. We'll give ourselves a 0.7 if we did hit that target, right? And then we'll give ourselves a 1.0 if we exceed that target. Going back to aspirational OKRs, if we are constantly hitting our target, there's a good chance we're not setting that target high enough, okay? So just because you're hitting 1.0 just because you're crushing it doesn't mean you're crushing it, okay? So definitely understand what it means when you're going through your scoring system here, okay? When you want to use it, though, is to drive accountability, okay? That's speaking to the committed OKRs, right? These committed OKRs saying that, yeah, we are committed to doing that. We are going to hit it, right? It's 100%. And so the strength in that, though, is that it does drive accountability. So with the committed OKRs, if we aren't hitting them, right? Why aren't we hitting them, right? Let's talk about some accountability. So just definitions there on the Measure What Matters method. Okay, and here we have an example of the Measure What Matters method using the aspirational approach, okay? So here we've got the same use cases before when we looked at radical focus, right? So to be the product of choice for small business financing. And here our key result is to convert 10% of first-time users to subscription. So the way this scoring method looks is here we've identified that 0.3 will give us some progress in terms of a score, right? 0.7 meaning we hit our target, and 1.0 meaning we exceeded the target, right? So we call that out also here. So we have a pretty good idea what that means. In terms of the final score and this end of grading cycle for an aspirational key result here, we gave ourselves a 0.3. Okay, well, why did we give ourselves a 0.3? Well, let's take a look at the keep, modify, and remove. Okay, so user subscriptions are core to our product, and we've made significant progress towards our goal of 10%. To date, we have increased our first-time users to subscription from 5% to 8%, and although we missed our key result, we have a number of initiatives that are close to being complete, and upon completion, we should be at 13%, and we should have to modify this key result to reflect a stretch of 15%, okay? So again, we scored ourselves a 0.3, meaning that we didn't hit our goal of 10% here like we were intending, but we've improved our subscriptions from 5 to 8%, right? So we have seen some progress there, and so no, we didn't hit our goal, but we have made some progress, and based on our scoring method, this is where we've landed. Okay, so just an example there of the Measure What Matters aspirational scoring method when it comes to end of cycle grading. Okay, and so here we have the Measure What Matters method of committed scoring OKRs. Okay, so again, same objective, to be the product of choice for small business financing, but here we have a key result of being SOC 2 compliant by end of Q2. And again, by end of Q2, that's really up to you, but it's implied that we will be SOC compliant at the end of this OKR cycle. Okay, so in terms of our end of cycle scoring here with the committed OKRs, we've given ourselves a final score of 0, but why did we give ourselves a final score of 0? Well, let's take a look at that. Okay, SOC 2 compliance is core to our product, and we've made significant progress towards our goal of 100% compliant, right? To date, we are 80% compliant, and although we missed our key result, we have completed the majority of core compliance. The remaining 20% will likely take an additional OKR cycle, as the remaining items are many but fairly simple to attain from a regulatory standpoint. Okay, so yeah, we gave ourselves a 0, but we've accomplished 80%, right? And it sounds to me like we've accomplished really the heavy lifting here. And if you've ever been through a compliance or some type of audit, it's at 80%. It's good to be at that score, especially if you've done the majority of the heavy lifting with a compliance. So, okay. All right, so here we have the stretch, target, and commit. This was one of my favorite scoring methods. I really like this method. It was introduced by Ben Lamort, and it's really kind of a combination of the radical focus method as well as the Measure What Matters method. But let's take a look at it, right? So in terms of the scoring method, you have your stretch, target, and your commit. Well, what does the 10, 50, and 90% mean? Well, what that means is that when we're looking at our stretch target, that's about a 10% of attainability, right? So, I mean, we've definitely set that bar pretty high. We're giving ourselves 10%, a likelihood that we're going to hit that, right? So that's our stretch. Our target, we set that at 50%, right? Meaning that we should be able to hit that. That's our target. But our commit, at the bare minimum, we're committing to this particular number here, and that's 90%, set at 90%, right? So, I mean, we should definitely hit our commit, and then our target is 50%, and then we've got that stretch at 10% attainability, okay? When you want to use it is when organizations want to create that culture of stretch, right? Where you're really wanting to create that aspirational nature about your organization, right? And so because it does have the different target scoring methods here, it helps to set those expectations in terms of where are we going to land with this key result, right? So its limitation, well, it's not ideal for teams that are focused on commitments, right? So in this case, probably don't want to use this scoring method if we do have to be SOC compliant by the end of Q2, right? Or if we have to be off of one system and onto another system by a certain date, right? So not ideal in those cases, but definitely a good scoring method. Okay, so let's take a look at the stretch target commit method applied when it comes to end of cycle grading, right? How does that work? So in this case, the objective, same use case that we've been using, right? To be the product of choice for small business financing. And in this case, our key result is to convert 10% of first-time users to subscription. In terms of our scoring method, what we've identified here is that we'll give ourselves a 0.5, meaning that we're committing to moving the needle to 5% of users, right? 5% user increase. We'll give ourselves a 0.7 if we hit a target of 8% of users becoming first-time subscribers, okay? And then we'll give ourselves a 1.0 if we hit that 10% of first-time users, right? And so when you look at this scoring method here, the stretch is actually built into the key result. And then we have our targets and our commits that are also identified there. So in terms of end of cycle scoring, in this case, we gave ourselves a 0.7 or target, right? You can score that either way, give yourself a 0.7 or call out that you hit your target. But in this case, we gave ourselves a 0.7, right? Meaning that we did hit our target of 8% of users. And let's look at why we decided to modify our key result in this case. And so similar response to other examples here, but user subscriptions are core to our product, and we've made significant progress towards our goal of 10%. To date, we have increased our first-time user subscriptions from 3% to 8%, right? So with that 8%, we hit that target. And so we gave ourselves a 0.7, okay? In terms of moving forward, though, upon completion, we should be at approximately 13%, and we would like to modify this key result to reflect a stretch of 15%, right? So now we're going from a 10% stretch to a 15% stretch, and this is why, okay? So just an example there of the stretch, target, and commit method applied when it comes to end of cycle scoring, okay? All right, so our learning recap. What did we learn during this webinar? Well, we took a look at the different OKR types, right? The baseline, metric, and milestone key results. And we revisited those definitions in terms of understanding how they apply to our scoring, right? Okay. And then we also looked at the different OKR scoring methods. We looked at that radical focus method, that method that starts off at 50%, and you either hit your goal or you don't, right? We looked at the measure what matters method that incorporates aspirational key results as well as committed key results, right? And those committed key results being 100% attainable, meaning that we are going to hit that, right? And then we also looked at the stretch, target, and commit method by Ben Lamort, which really kind of blends the radical focus method as well as the measure what matters method by John Dewar. And then we wrapped it up by looking at the OKR end of cycle grading and how each of those different scoring methods applies towards the end of cycle scoring. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this webinar. I've enjoyed teaching it, and if you want to learn more about Synergita, visit synergita.com, and if you want to learn more about Apodaca Consulting, visit apodacaconsulting.com. Thank you for your time.